Hey YouTube. All right, so you guys all saw that video of the stripper falling off the pole, the exotic dancer, I should say. I don't know if stripper is like derogatory or not, but the way people say it kind of sounds derogatory. So I'm going to call her an exotic dancer. You guys all saw the video of the exotic dancer falling off the pole, and it went viral not because she just fell off the pole, but also because of how high it was. I think she was about 20 feet in the air, and then also she kept twerking after she fell. And shout outs to her for being a professional, getting the job done, even though, she fell out of that chair, she was still getting the job done. So shout outs to her for that. That was impressive as far as I'm concerned. But also she received really serious injuries. It looks like she says that she's fine, but she broke her jaw and some of her teeth. And she's young, so she may not realize the jaw is a really sensitive area. You break that area, you can get arthritis there, and it will be painful for the rest of your life. You have to talk, you have to chew, so it's a part of your body that you have to use daily, multiple times a day. And it's really hard to recover from jaw injuries. But it's something you can deal with and recover from, and I wish her a speedy recovery. Now, aside from all the jokes, and the jokes are funny because, ultimately she didn't pass away, which is great. But aside from all the really funny jokes, I wanted to point out one thing. There was a really frequent question that people used to ask online, or that people are asking online, and that's, can she get workers' comp? Like, why doesn't she have workers' comp or insurance to help pay for her medical bills? Because as you guys have seen, there's a GoFundMe for her, which has gotten like thousands of dollars worth of donations so that she could get her medical bills paid for. Well, workers' compensation, for those of you that don't know, is for people that suffer, is for employees that suffer workplace injuries. Basically, your employer, if you suffer a injury in the course of your job while you're on duty, your employer is supposed to pay for the wages that you would have made had you been at work, pay for your surgery, any medical treatment, anything that you may have needed, and then pay for any permanent injuries that you have for the rest of your life as a result of your injury, if there are any permanent injuries as a result of your injury. So that's basically what workers' compensation does. That's a really simple explanation of workers' compensation, right? Well, unfortunately, exotic dancers are seen as independent contractors. And so since she's an independent contractor, she will not have the ability to obtain workers' compensation, because workers' compensation is only for employees. So it's an employer-employee relationship. So, for example, barbers are sometimes seen as independent contractors. They purchase the chair or they rent the chair that they cut hair at. Same thing with beauticians. They're also seen as independent contractors a lot of the time. Things that might not be as obvious to be an independent contractor. Sometimes like a groundskeeper will be an independent contractor. And they'll say like this person runs their own groundskeeping business and they're not employed by this university or this company or this property management company or whatever the case may be, right? And so they'll call that person a independent contractor, which means basically you work for yourself and you either pay us something in order for you to do your job here, or we pay you, okay, so let me back that up. So basically you work, the way that an independent contractor is technically supposed to be is you work at a location, but it's your own business that you're operating at that location. That's what an independent contractor normally is. However, that independent contractor status that allows for businesses to opt out of providing insurance and workers' compensation to the people that work there isn't usually what these people are. Exotic dancer is actually not an independent contractor. If you think about it, she receives her wages from the club itself. Of course, they're going to get their tips and so on and so forth that they get from the club, but it's usually the only place that they're working. They're usually not, contracted out to different clubs and things like that. And they are on the club's time. They don't make their own time. They don't really negotiate much of anything. They get called in whenever the club wants to call them in. And so they're at the will of the employer, which is the club. But because people don't really care about exotic dancers get to be labeled as independent contractors. Accordingly, they're not going to get health insurance from their employers, and then they're also not going to get workers' compensation benefits from the strip clubs either. So that's always something to keep in mind, that if you are working in a job where you're deemed to be an independent contractor, you have to purchase your own insurance out of your own pocket, and then you have to set aside money in case you're injured on the job, especially a job as dangerous as exotic dancing. nowadays people expect at gentlemen's clubs, strip clubs, whatever you want to call them, they expect for the dancers to, be up in the rafters, hanging upside down, doing all types of flips and tricks and things like that. All of these things are extremely dangerous. These poles are greased so that they can slide up and down them, and it's a lot of danger that they assume when they take on those positions. Now, the devil's advocate to this is that people say that the stripper takes on the risk, right? The exotic dancer takes on the assumption of the risk when they go and they do this exotic dancing. So like they know that it's going to be dangerous for them to get up in the rafters, and the strip club is not forcing them to get up in the rafters. However, the strip club is providing environment for these dancers and an incentive for them to do more dangerous tricks. The more dangerous the tricks are, the more tips that they'll get. I don't know if you guys remember, but during Super Bowl weekend, Cardi B was complained on by some of the dancers at a club that she was at that she wasn't giving out tips. And she said that she was giving out tips, but that the girls that were just laying there and not really doing anything, she wasn't giving money to, and the girls that were really putting a lot of effort into it, those were the ones that were getting the most money. So clearly, the way that capitalism is set up, the more excessive that you are, the more specialized you are, the more acrobatic that you are, because I don't want to call excessive, I don't want to be negative, because they are skilled dancers. I couldn't do any of the things that they can do, but the more acrobatic and skilled that they are, the more money that they're going to receive. So the strip club creates an incentive for these women to risk themselves in order to do these exotic dances and obtain tips. And the tips are basically how they get paid, because they don't really receive a living wage from the strip club. So what they do is they hide behind the fact that these are independent contractors, and they say that they take on the risk of the dangerousness, but they incentivize the dangerousness. So in other areas of the law, people like the people that go to buildings, for example, you may see a floor and say, okay, well, maybe that floor could possibly be slippery, but the property owner still has a obligation to make sure that the premises are safe, right? And here it's like we're not putting on the strip club that they have to make sure that the premises are safe for the exotic dancers. We're just telling the exotic dancers that they're basically ignorant for doing their jobs in a way that could be dangerous to them, but there's no safeguards put in place by the property manager, which is the strip club, to make sure that these people are safe. So obviously there are 20 feet in the air on these greasy poles. Maybe they could put in some type of restrictions on how high up the poles go. Maybe they could add some type of padding to the bottom of the stage. I don't really see how adding padding wouldn't in some way, I don't see how adding padding would take away from the experience of the strip club. And then I also think that adding padding would allow for the strippers to be, or the dancers to be safer when they're doing their like acrobatic stunts, because like, especially in black strip clubs, I see a lot more of them doing like stunts and things like that than I see at white strip clubs. Like you see more of them just dancing on the pole. Not to say that it doesn't happen, it does. Like they do, but I don't see them hanging up and down from like the rafters in the air and stuff like that. So there's definitely an incentive that's in place for exotic dancers to be more dangerous, but there's no safeguards that are taken for them. And basically they're just being told that, look, you assume the risk by being a stripper, it's your own fault. But we don't treat other professions in that way. Like if it was inherently dangerous every single time that I stepped into a courtroom, they would do something about that. I'm not of any more value just because I'm not an exotic dancer. And I feel like that's how they should be treated, with like a bit of humanity. And also it's just the perfect case for Medicare for all, because there's no reason that we should have to have GoFundMes. Think about it this way. We all pay taxes. And then we all, if we do have a job, we all have the type of job where if we receive health insurance, we both pay into our health insurance on a monthly basis, or we pay into our health insurance on a monthly or bi-weekly basis. And then our employer will usually match what we put in for our health insurance, so they'll pay a little bit more than what we put in for our health insurance. And then when we go to the hospital or the doctor or specialist or whatever the case may be, we have to pay what's called a copay in most cases, right? And the price that we all have to pay personally for insurance is impacted by the fact that there are people that have to go to the hospital that don't have insurance, such as independent contractors. This young lady clearly doesn't have insurance. That's why she needs a GoFundMe. So because people have to go to the emergency room without insurance, and then they don't end up paying don't end up paying for the services at the emergency room, it makes the price of healthcare go up for everybody. And so all of our insurance premiums go up and we all have to pay more. And then when those people are so seriously injured that just going to the emergency room isn't going to do it, or they need to schedule surgery or have teeth replaced or something like that, if people need GoFundMes, that's the general public paying into the GoFundMe. I think it would be a lot more cost efficient and economical if we had a Medicare for All system where we all paid our own taxes. Like, we already pay taxes, right? We all pay taxes. We don't pay anything for our health insurance to our employer. Our employer doesn't have to match anything, and we're also not paying co-pays. And so obviously the slight rise in the taxes will be offset by what we were paying before for co-pays and matching from our employers, for deductibles and things of that nature. So I feel as though this stripper's case, as like popular as it became, is the perfect example of why we need a universal medical system, universal Medicaid system, so that everybody can receive medical care without having to resort to begging on the internet. And when I say begging on the internet, I'm not taking anything away from the young lady. I'm not trying to say that she shouldn't receive a GoFundMe, that no one should donate. I'm not saying that, because I think everyone has the right to health care, even exotic dancers. I feel like we treat people that are deemed independent contractors as somehow lesser than, but there are so many people in this world that do not get the benefit of being called an employee. And the fact that strip clubs and, businesses of all types get to deem people that really are their employees as independent contractors is that it's a way of them getting out of paying taxes for that person, right? Because then the independent contractor has to pay the taxes, not the employer. And it's a way to get out of providing health insurance and workers' compensation for those people, which, all employers have to carry workers' comp and health insurance for their employees. But if all the people that you work for you deem as an independent contractor, you don't have to pay any of those things to help those people. Well, again, if we had a universal healthcare system, it wouldn't matter if employers wouldn't be able to opt out of providing their employees with healthcare by calling them independent contractors. And then this exotic dancer would not need to resort to GoFundMe in order to receive medical treatment. You would also have things like paid leave, so that she can have her time off where she's not able to dance that is covered while she is under a Medicare for All system. So, this case of the stripper falling from the pole, while it did get a lot of clicks and it was very funny and people like to make jokes about it because, I don't know if it was fight or flight. I don't know what it was that allowed her to just start twerking right away as soon as she fell off the pole. I don't know how she did that. My hats off to this young lady. But she also shouldn't have to resort to going on GoFundMe in order to receive medical treatment. Medical treatment should be a right for everybody in this country. And these companies, these large corporations, even a small business like a strip club, they're allowed to opt out of providing that to the everyday person because they get to call them independent contractors. So no, to answer the question that the internet had, strippers, exotic dancers, independent contractors do not receive health insurance, and they also do not receive workers' compensation. And so for that reason, they have to pay for everything out of pocket. And if they're not able to dance, they're not able to pay for these things out of pocket. And that's why many people have to go to GoFundMe in order to pay for their medical bills. And medical bills should not be something that's crowdsourced on the internet. It should be something that's taken care of by our government, since they want us to work, in order to, get from the day to day to keep the economy going. They should also think of healthcare. The people that run the engine should receive healthcare as a human right. So that's my take on the stripper falling off the pole. What do you guys think about it? Do you think that she deserves to get health insurance, that all strippers should get health insurance? Or do you think that, she should just have to pay for it out of her own pocket and she's irresponsible for not having it? Tell me what you think below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you do. All right, bye.